The phone had been going for 11 minutes before I understood I was awake. For in the morning, kitchen dark except for the microwave clock and my laptop, and the number on the screen was a claim count for the whole product, every small business we had, and it was going down. Not sideways. Down, in steps, like someone walking downstairs in another part of the house. 2,400,000. Then 2,000,001. Then 1.8. I typed with one hand and held the phone with the other, and Fionn from support was saying the word flooded over and over about his inbox, and behind him I could hear his kettle, which I remember because it was the most normal sound I heard for about 9 days. I stopped the thing that was doing it at 17 minutes past 4. That part was easy. Honestly, it took 4 minutes and 3 commands, and it was the last easy thing that happened. Then I sat there in my dressing gown looking at what was left, which was a product that still loaded, still logged you in, still showed you your company name and your logo, and had almost none of your claims in it. 11 months gone for 2,900 businesses. Plumbers, dog groomers, a man in Halifax with 4 vans. All the paperwork they use to get paid when something goes wrong. So I did the thing you do. I went to get last night's copy of the database, the one that gets written every night at 1:30, the one that had reported success every single night since before I joined. And it was there, exactly where it should be, with the right date on it, and it was 4 kilobytes. The size of a short email. I remember saying no out loud to my own kitchen. I opened it. One line of text at the top, the title line, the bit that says what the file is meant to be. Nothing underneath it. Maeve and I signed a 2-year lease on a unit on the Balfour estate in the January, between a tire place and a company that hires out marquees. It has a roller door, a concrete floor with a drain in the middle of it, and a smell I have never been able to name. We are opening a bicycle workshop. Repairs, refurbished frames, a Saturday class for people who want to stop being frightened of their own gears. Maeve is the one who can actually build a wheel. I am the one with the spreadsheet and the salary is the whole point of me. The plan was always that my wage carried the first year while the shop found its feet, and if I got the lead engineer job that had been dangling in front of me since the autumn, the raise would mean Maeve could give up 2 of her 3 shifts at the hospital and be at the unit properly instead of doing brake cables at 11 at night with her coat still on. Opening weekend was booked. A cycling club coming for coffee and a raffle. 6 weeks out, and moving whether I was ready or not. At work, I was one of 4 people on the platform team at a company that makes claims software for small businesses. If you run a bakery with 6 staff and someone slips on a wet floor, or your van gets hit, the software we make is the thing your insurer's broker puts in front of you so you can lodge it and upload your photos and chase it. Not glamorous. It matters an enormous amount to people on the worst week of their year. What I owned was everything under the product. The servers, the machines the data sits on, the alerts, the thing that gets me out of bed. When I went on holiday, I took a work laptop into a caravan in Northumberland, and everyone pretended that was normal. My boss was Ambrose, head of engineering, 3 years in the job, came from a company that sold parking software. In my own head, I called him the weather vane, because whatever the loudest person in the building had said last week was the direction he was pointing this week. And he said it with the absolute confidence of a man who had never once looked at where he had been pointing before. He had a thing he did with his hand. When he was about to tell you no, he would press the pad of his thumb into the middle of his own forehead, hard, like he was trying to push the idea back in. You learned to watch for it. Once you saw the thumb, the conversation was already over. He was not a monster. I want to be fair, because I have been unfair about him plenty in my own kitchen. Every other Friday, he left at 2 to drive his mom to her hospital appointments in Wakefield, and he came back on the Monday with a paper bag of pastries from a bakery near the hospital, which were genuinely awful, dry as plasterboard, and he handed them round with real pleasure, and we all ate them. The other thing you need is Wilf. Wilf was 61 and had been at the company 9 years, which was longer than the product had existed in its current shape. He wore the same fleece from October to April. His job, as far as anyone senior could tell, was that he sat quietly and nothing broke. His job, as far as I could tell, was that he was the only living person who understood how our claims data actually fitted together. 9 years of decisions, workarounds. One insurer in 2019 who insisted on their own format and got it. A table that had 2 different meanings depending on which year the row was created in. All of that lived behind Wilf's forehead and nowhere else. Here is the scene I keep coming back to, and at the time it was nothing. October, A Tuesday, my week carrying the phone. A ticket came in from a plumbing firm in Sheffield called Marchetti and Sons. One of their office staff had gone through and deleted a batch of 40 claims that they thought were duplicates and were not. Could we get them back, please? Finn had bumped it to us because Finn is decent and hates telling people no. I actually went looking. I sat there with the ticket open on one screen and thought, right, we take a copy of everything every night. We keep 90 days of them. This is a Tuesday afternoon. Monday night's copy has 40 claims in it. Easy win. Make a plumber's day. And then, before I did anything, I did what you were supposed to do and read the ticket history. And there was a note on it from 6 months earlier on a similar request, written by Ambrose himself, in the support system, with his name on it and the date. I read it twice. It said, in his words, that this was a standing instruction, that we do not offer to recover deleted claims for customers under any circumstances, that we have never once tested whether a recovery from our nightly copies actually works, and he was not going to find out on a customer's data, and that support should tell people to re-enter the records by hand. I went and stood by Wilf's desk with my mug and said, "Do you know we have never restored one of these?" Not once. He said he knew. He said he had raised it twice, years apart, and been told it was on the list. He said the thing that stuck with me, which was that a backup nobody has ever opened is not a backup, it is a hope with a file name. I laughed. I told the plumber's office manager that unfortunately the records could not be recovered and she would need to enter them again, and she was so nice about it that I felt physically unwell, and then I closed the ticket and went to lunch. February. Ambrose booked a room for what the calendar called a shape conversation. Me, him, and Bronwen, who was the fourth person on our team and who had worked out about 2 years before me that most meetings are theater. He said the company needed to be honest about where its money went. He said we had a person on the team whose output could not be seen in any of the numbers he reported upwards. He did not say the name for about 4 minutes, and then he did. I said no. Out loud, plainly, no cleverness, because I had genuinely not seen it coming and I was too surprised to be political. I said Wilf is the only person here who knows how the claims data is put together. I said none of it is written down anywhere, not the insurer exceptions, not the 2 meanings of that table, not the thing he does on Friday afternoons where he opens last night's copy and looks at whether it is the right size. I said if he walks out of this building we are one bad day away from losing everything and having nobody who can get it back. And Ambrose pressed his thumb into the middle of his forehead and said, "Desmond, you have just made my argument for me." I said what? He said, and I want to be careful here because I have quoted this so many times that I no longer trust myself, but the shape of it was this, that a company cannot be in a position where one man is the only one who knows something, that it is a risk, that the correct response to that risk is not to keep paying the man, it is to remove the dependency on him. He said he wanted a handover document. He said 2 weeks, everything out of his head onto paper, and then the team would be resilient in a way it had never been. And he actually used the word resilient twice. Bronwen said, very evenly. So the fix for only one person knowing is fewer people knowing. Ambrose said that was a cynical way to put it. She said it was an accurate way to put it. He said he would take that on board. The group chat afterwards was 7 minutes of nothing, and then Teodor, who had been with us 11 weeks and was 23 and had no idea what he was looking at, asking if Wilf was retiring. Bronwen sent back a single full stop. Saskia, who tested the product and who has the survival instincts of something that has been in a war, sent me a private message that said, "Get him to put the decision and the 2-week handover in writing, in email, to the whole team, and keep it." I said that felt a bit much. She said, "Suit yourself." She was right, and I did nothing about it, which is a thing I get to live with. Wilf took it better than I did. That was the worst part. He was told on a Thursday, and on the Friday he came in with a notebook and said, "Right, sit next to me. We have got 10 working days. What do you want first?" Those 2 weeks were the most educational fortnight of my career and nowhere near enough. He walked me through the claims data the way you would walk someone round a house you had built yourself. Going, "Mind that step. That light switch does the wrong room. That wall is not real." The insurer from 2019 with their own format. The 3 customers whose accounts were set up wrong in the beginning and had been quietly special ever since. He wrote 6 pages. Actual pages, then typed up, and I still have them. Page 4 had a heading about the nightly copies, and under it he wrote that they had never been tested and that somebody should test one on a spare machine and see what came out. and that it would take an afternoon. He sent all 6 pages to Ambrose and to me. Ambrose replied within the hour saying, "Brilliant. Thank you, Wilf. This is exactly the kind of thing that de-risks us." I know for a fact he did not read it, because page 2 had a sentence in it about who to call at the insurer, and the insurer's name was spelled wrong. And 4 months later, Ambrose spelled it the same wrong way in front of the CTO. Wolf's last day was a Friday. Someone bought a card. He shook my hand at the lift and said, "You'll be fine. Test the copies." Then the doors closed, and that was that. And on the Monday, his desk had a monitor on it and no cables. In March, Ambrose Green lit a piece of work he had wanted for a year, which was tidying up the naming of everything underneath the product so that new engineers could understand it. Perfectly reasonable idea. Wilf would have been the person to do it. Instead, it was Teodor, 11 weeks in and keen as a whippet, and a contractor called Dev who was with us for 5 weeks, and whose surname I could not tell you. The main database got renamed as part of it. The change went out on a Thursday afternoon, and it went out with nobody reading it properly, because I was in a 2-day workshop about our goals for the year, and Bronwen was in Portugal, and Ambrose approved it himself on his phone with the word nice. The nightly copy was pointed at the old name. It found nothing there. It did not fail. It wrote out the title line, the bit that says what the file is meant to be, and then it wrote nothing underneath it, and then it reported success, on time, every single night, for 4 months. Nobody opened one. There was nobody left whose Friday habit that was. Pick it up at 20 past 4 in the morning with me sitting in the dark, holding a file the size of a short email. I went back a night. Same size. I went back a week, a month, and they all came out at 4 kilobytes, right back to the middle of March. And then before that there was nothing at all, because we only ever kept 90 days. I rang Bronwen and she picked up on the second ring, already sounding awake. And I said, "I need you to open last night's copy on your machine, because I need to be wrong." There was about 40 seconds of nothing. Then she said, "Desmond, there is a header and there is no body." I said, "I know." She said, "How far back?" I said, "All of it." The second machine, the standby, was next. We keep a duplicate of the main database on another machine so that if the first one dies, we can switch over. Bronwen went at it while I got dressed with the phone on the counter. The duplicate had done exactly the job it exists to do, which is to copy everything the main machine does within a second or two, faithfully, including a deletion. 2,900 businesses had lost their claims twice, in 2 places, for seconds apart, and both copies agreed perfectly. Fionn opened the office at 6:30 because he lives closest. I got there at 10 past 7. Saskia was already at her desk with her coat on, which she did not take off all day. Teodor arrived at 7:30, not knowing yet, put his bag down, said morning, and then read the chat, and I watched a 23-year-old work out in real time that a change he had written in March had helped do this. He went the color of a dishcloth. I told him it was not his change that deleted anything, which was true, and that we would sort out whose fault what was later, which was also true, and he sat down and did 9 hours of the most careful work I have ever seen out of a junior. Because the deletion itself was almost boring. A cleanup routine that clears out demo claims from our sales team's Playground account had run against the live database, because the identifier it used to know which account was the Playground had shifted during the renaming in March, and had been quietly pointing at a real customer group ever since. It ran monthly. The first 2 times it ran, the group it pointed at happened to be empty. The third time it was not. Ambrose arrived at 10 past 9. I remember it precisely because Fionn said, "He's here," and the room went quiet in a way I have only heard twice in my life. He came in gray in the face, still in his cycling jacket, and he stood at the end of our row of desks and asked what our recovery time looked like, in a normal voice, like a man asking after a train. I said, "We do not have one." He said, "Don't be dramatic." I said, "Ambrose, the nightly copies are empty. They have been empty since March. Nobody ever restored one, so nobody ever found out. And we cannot find out something we never look at." Say that out loud in a quiet office at 9 in the morning, and it does not sound like engineering. It sounds like a diagnosis. We tried 4 more things, and each one failed differently. And I want to be fair to us. We were not stupid. We were just standing at the bottom of a hole with a teaspoon. The weekly export we send to the reporting tool, the one the finance people use for their graphs. Saskia thought of it, and for about 20 minutes, it was the best idea in the building. It contains totals. Claims opened per week, per insurer, average days to settle. Beautiful numbers. Not one word of what was actually in a single claim. The change log. We do keep a record of who touched what, and it goes back a year, and Teodor had it open in about 4 minutes. It records that a claim was updated, and by which user, and when. It does not record what the claim said. 200,000 lines confirming that things had happened. The uploaded documents. This one hurt. Every photo, every invoice, every scan of a doctor's letter that a customer had ever attached to a claim was still sitting safely in a completely separate store, untouched, all of it, because the deletion had only gone through the database. So we had 460,000 files and no way to tell which claim any of them belonged to, because the thing that connected a photo to a claim was a row in the table that no longer existed. Bronwen said it out loud, flatly. We have got all the photographs from the wedding and no idea who got married. And then, at about 11, Ambrose said the word Wilf. He said it like he was doing us a favor. He said, get him on the phone, offer him whatever, day rate, whatever he wants. And Bronwen looked up and said she would try, and she did, and Wilf's mobile went straight to a voicemail message that had clearly been recorded years ago. It took us 3 hours to find out why. His wife answered the landline eventually, and she was lovely about it and told us he was in mid-Wales, on the second day of a 5-day residential course to qualify as a wilderness first aid instructor, a thing he had wanted to do for about 15 years and had signed up for the week after he finished with us. And the whole point of the course, she said, sounding slightly amused, is that they take everybody's phones off them at the door on the Sunday and lock them in a metal box, because you cannot teach people to make decisions with no help available if they have got a lifeline in their pocket. Ambrose said that could not possibly be right. Ambrose said, and I promise this is close to exact, there must be a duty phone. There was a duty phone. It was the center's landline. It rang out to an answering machine that told us the office was staffed between 9 and 10 in the morning. We left for messages. Fionn, God love him, found the number of a pub in the same village and asked them if they knew the course leader, and it turned out that they did. Wilf called us from the center's office phone at 2:20 on the second day, standing up, with about 90 seconds before somebody wanted the room. I did the talking. I read the file sizes off my screen and told him what the standby had done and what the export had in it, and he listened without interrupting once. And then he said, confirmation emails. Every single claim, from the day the product launched, sends the customer an email confirming what they lodged. Reference, date, insurer, the summary they typed, the list of attachments by name. Those emails go out through an outside provider, and that provider keeps 12 months of everything it has sent on our behalf, because we pay for the tier that does that, because Wilf had picked the tier 6 years ago for exactly this reason and told nobody, because nobody had ever asked. 9 days. 9 days of the 4 of us, plus Fionn, plus Saskia, plus Teodor who barely went home, pulling 1.6 million emails out of a provider's archive and turning them back into claims. We got about 60% of it back to estate customers could use. The rest was wrung round by hand, business by business, by every person in the building who could hold a phone, including 2 of the sales team who cried. There's a version of my kitchen table from that week where the bike shop lease sat under my laptop for 4 days and I did not look at it once. The Monday after, the CTO called a meeting in the big room on the 2nd floor. Imelda had flown back from a conference on the Wednesday of the disaster and had spent 5 days being extremely calm at people, which is much worse than shouting. 14 of us round the table and along the wall. Ambrose sat 2 seats down from her with a notebook he did not open. She said, walk me through it. I gave the sequence. What ran, why it pointed at the wrong group, what the standby did, and then I said the sentence I had said 4 times already that week, that the nightly copies had been empty since March and nobody knew because in the entire history of the company not one of them had ever been opened and restored to see if anything came out. Ambrose went first at the contractor and at Teodor. He said the renaming work had been carried out to a standard he was frankly disappointed by, that a change of that significance should never have gone out without proper review, and he looked genuinely aggrieved, and Teodor stared at the table, and I could see his jaw going. Imelda asked who approved it. Ambrose said the approval process at the time was lightweight. She wrote something down. Then he went at the second thing, which was the one I had been waiting for without knowing I was waiting for it. He straightened up and said that the real failure here was not one change. It was that nobody had ever flagged the recovery position to him. He said if a single person had come to him and said our backups are untested and this is a live risk, it would have been actioned that week. It would have gone straight to the top of the list. He said, nobody raised it. That is the honest answer. Nobody raised it with me. I had printed it on the Sunday night at home, on Maeve's printer, and it had been in the front pocket of my bag since, and I had not decided whether I was going to use it right up until he said the word nobody the second time. I took it out and put it on the table and slid it up to Imelda. That's your reply on the Marchetti ticket. October. Then I shut up. That was the hardest part. Actually, the shutting up. Imelda picked it up and read it to herself first, and the room got the sort of quiet where you can hear the ceiling. Then she read out the middle of it, in her flat conference voice, the part where he wrote that we had never once tested whether a recovery from our nightly copies worked, and that he was not going to find out on a customer's data, and that support were to tell people to re-enter their records by hand. Ambrose's hand stopped about halfway to his water glass and stayed there. He said, that is not the same thing. And his voice went on the second word, up and thin, and he did not say anything else for the rest of the meeting. He was still there on the Tuesday and on the Wednesday, and on the Thursday he was in a room with Imelda and someone from HR for 2 hours, and on the Friday his account stopped working while he was in it, which I know because Saskia watched him get logged out mid-sentence. The email said he was leaving to pursue other opportunities and thanked him for his contribution. Bronwen read it out loud in a newsreader voice, and nobody laughed, which surprised me. Wilf came back at a day rate that made the finance director make a noise. He is still there, 3 days a week, contractor, no fleece, and the first thing he did was restore a copy onto a spare machine in front of 4 of us, while Teodor took photographs of the screen like a tourist. We do it monthly now. It is in the calendar with my name against it. Imelda gave me the lead engineer job in the August with the raise attached, and about 9 kilograms of responsibility I had not asked for. Maeve dropped to 1 shift a week. We opened on the last Saturday of September with the roller door up and the cycling club standing around eating flapjack in the drizzle, and Wilf turned up with a boxed wool truing stand under his arm and set it on the bench and said, right, show me what's written down.